Welcome to Navigating Betrayal webinar, podcast, and YouTube channel. I'm your host, KayLee Dunn, betrayal navigation coach, betrayal trauma therapist for over a decade, and admin to this free Facebook group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Kate Conwell. She is the dynamic force behind Journey Beyond Betrayal, a transformative online community and coaching program dedicated to guiding women through the aftermath of infidelity. As the founder, Kate blends her professional expertise as a certified mental health coach and kingdom coach with the profound lessons she has learned from her own journey. Drawing from her experience as an NCAA pole vault champion, I probably didn't say that right, and her
You did.
resilience in overcoming the pain of betrayal, she helps women develop a champion's mindset and rediscover their God-given worth amid heartbreak. Kate empowers all women, no matter what their athletic ability, to channel their inner champion, reclaim their confidence, and find victory over the pain of infidelity. So today we are going to be discussing the unexpected power of fitness after betrayal and in betrayal recovery. So thank you so much for joining us, Kate. Before we start, please let me know, did I miss anything or would you like to share anything else before we
I, th-
move on?
I think you got it all. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. We did a little preview of this a few days ago, and I've been telling people I'm so excited because I haven't talked specifically about this topic in length with anyone, other than coaching clients in the community, but not
Yeah.
publicly. So I think this is going to be awesome. I'm so excited for people who get to hear this and to have the opportunity to talk more about it because I get to connect all the pieces of who I am and how I help people. So
Well, absolutely. And the first time you and I met, which was probably, I don't know, a year ago or something, told me a little bit about your background, and I was immediately captured and letting you know how important, and I think you already knew how important this discussion is because of all the things we're going to talk about today, but fitness played a part in my journey as well. And then it can also just be really complicated. Our relationship with our bodies and our relationship with fitness can be
mhm.
very complicated by betrayal. So to have a discussion on how it can actually be used to further our growth and development, I think is so important. So your story, your personal story is so powerful. So would you mind starting off by sharing us how fitness became a key part of your own betrayal recovery journey and how it's played a part in your life?
And I would say, as I was preparing this, I don't think I really recognized how much fitness played a role in my recovery until I started helping other people and recognizing all of the benefits that I had, like starting with D-Day because of my athletic background and because of all
Right.
the fit. Like I was a fitness coach before, I was a betrayal recovery coach, and so um, I didn't. And when I started to work with people, I was like, oh, this was why I was able to do this. This was what I was doing
Oh,
without even knowing that I was doing it. And then, just all the lessons that you learn as an athlete or as a fitness professional, or you like working through your own fitness journey, that then you
mm,
you like you can see there's so many parallels. And having been a fitness coach and now a coach for women, I'm like, oh man, like there's actually some stuff I could have gone back and helped my clients with previously with their fitness journeys with what I've learned as a coach for
mm,
like more of a life coach. But it's I started my, fitness athletic journey like as a child,
mm-hmm.
as many people do, but I was a very high level gymnast at a young age. And so like level 10 gymnast in fifth grade, but then ended up quitting because that was a huge commitment. But
Mm-hmm.
then that spurred on like more and more athletics. That was a huge part of my childhood, and became a pole vaulter, which gymnastics tended to lead into that at the beginning
Oh,
when
okay.
I was learning to pole vault. It was a very new sport for women when I started, which was kind of fun too. So I was introduced to that, was able to earn a scholarship for college to compete at the University of Washington as an athlete there, and had these goals. As I had always had these goals when I was in high school, I wanted to win a state championship and ended up being able to do that, which I now recognize I had really great coaches. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge piece of it. But I had these goals. And then in college, I had a goal my senior year of college, like I want to win a national championship because I'd gotten second the year before and kind of worked my way up, ended up winning a national championship at the end of my senior year for the University of Washington, and then went on to compete, I guess, professionally in pole vault. You don't make a ton of money, like at the Olympic trials twice in 2004 and 2008. And so all that to say, my D-Day was 2012. So I brought with me all of that like
Right.
experience with learning how to do like doing hard things. Obviously, we had terrible hard workouts. And so like the idea of like, I don't want to do this. I wake up, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Mm.
Those kind of mindsets that I hear a lot of, like, I don't want to do this. It's like, I know you don't want to do this. Like nobody wants to do this. But those were
Yeah.
some things that I brought with me into my D-Day that I think I try to help people find even after their D-Day, because
Right.
that mindset, and like then having like a vision once I found out like what had happened, and I had a period of grieving because I we had been married 5 years when I found out about. I picked up my husband's phone and saw text messages that
Mhm.
nobody would ever want to see, which then
Yeah.
led to like a trickle truth over the next couple of weeks of not just messaging women, but a pornography addiction, and then two separate occasions, physical affairs, and then also, in not being faithful when we were engaged with another
Mm.
woman. And so kind of it had like his unfaithfulness started before we were even married,
Right.
and then the pornography addiction was even before we ever met. Like, and I
Right.
met him when he was 19. So this issue that he had been part of our whole relationship without me ever knowing about it.
Yeah.
It all came out 5 years into marriage, which then plummeted me. Still, of all the hard things I've ever done, that is the hardest thing I've ever walked through, as people who are watching this can very much relate to. Like, it shatters your world. You can't tell up from down. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust him. Your future feels like very, very uncertain. And for someone who was like very goal oriented and like, I want to do this, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then to have this happen to me was like, I felt so out of control because I like to
Yeah.
feel like I was in control, and I lost control, and then really realized ultimately, I always say the biggest lesson I learned through all this was that I was never really in control, and I was definitely
Yeah.
not in control of him. But
Yeah.
so that was really hard. But um part of what helped our healing when we got to that part after like the grieving and was like, I knew kind of what do I want to from this? Like, where do I want to go? And that concept of like creating a vision, I would say, or like,
Uh-huh.
I'm here, I'm broken. Where, like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? Came naturally to me because of what I had done. And so it's like, okay, this sucks. Like, what do I want to do? And then like, well, what am I going to do about it? Like, not just like, I
Right.
want this. And then I didn't know what to do.
Right.
Nobody like knows how to handle this when it happens to you.
No.
Like, so if you're feeling like really lost and confused, please know that that's totally normal. And nobody is like well equipped to, I mean, I haven't met anyone yet that's well equipped to deal with this when it happens to you.
Absolutely. But
Um,
I also
yeah.
think what you described is unique. So I agree with you that the mindset that you had built throughout your athletic career and life that really was focused on vision. Because usually after a traumatic event like you just described, which is gutting to hear about like how, difficult that was for you and for anyone who's been through betrayal, right? For most people, that part of our brain that looks to the future kind of turns off.
Mm.
And yet, for you and for others I've met who are either highly academic or highly athletic, who have a history of past coaches, I imagine, teaching you about, well,
Mhm.
where do you want to go and how are you going to get there over and over and over again, or highly musical, like things, people who have these
Yeah.
kind of like mastery based or leadership based
Hmm.
mindsets just built in, which was a privilege. Like someone who doesn't have that, there's nothing wrong with them, right? They just didn't have it,
No.
right? It's just luck,
Yeah.
and the work that you've done before. absolutely is unique that after a betrayal such as this, your mind went, okay, this is horrible and I'm going to grieve and be in crisis for a time, but then I'm going to be thinking, okay, but what do I want? What's my vision? And then what's my mission? Like, that's kind of how I talk about it with my clients. It sounds like you do too, of how am I going to get there? And for you to
Mhm.
go there pretty quickly, I think I just want to like put my stamp of approval on your assessment there. I really think that's unique. And for those listening who are like,
Mhm.
I don't think like that at all, like that's normal, you know? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
but you're
yeah.
saying, hey, you know what? I think there's something here about athleticism, whether you're actually athletic or not, but something about using your body and moving towards goals that actually can rewire your mind in a powerful way.
Absolutely. And that's what I think the power the on what was the title of the of the
Yeah,
um
the
like
unexpected
the
power of
onyx
fitness. Yeah.
yes, because when you like I think if you heard like, oh, the power of fitness in betrayal recovery, like what you would automatically think of is like, oh, well, when you move your body, it you know, like it creates a change in your hormones and, you know,
Endorphins,
endorphins
yeah.
and all of that. And absolutely, like
That's
it does
true.
do that. You know, that is true. And that is a powerful piece of doing it. And I would say as a former fitness coach, people think of like fitness as like weights and like cardio and all this, but I used to tell people they'd be like, well, what do you think is the best workout? Like, what do you think? And I'm like, the one you'll do, like whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I say that the same, you know, same with this. Like, what can I do for my healing? It's like, well, what will you do? Like, what are you willing
Mm-hmm.
to do? And you know, all those little things. Whether you, if you, if like for fitness, it's like if you walking is your thing or yoga is your thing, like that's what's gonna work for you because you'll keep doing it. Like, find what you
Right.
enjoy. There's so many ways to move your body, and so, by all means, I do think that the just general power of fitness for healing is important, even
Yeah.
if it's just walking, because it activates your mind, like we talked about the other day. And like just moving your body changes the way you see things. And it also,
Mm-hmm.
it does create endorphins that do help you feel better. So, there's
Mm-hmm.
that natural reason to include fitness just in your life. And it's self-care, it's choosing yourself,
Yeah.
uh even amongst like a time that you might not feel like you want to choose yourself. And I think when we recognize you do it, and then there's all these like you said, like just the unrecognized powers behind it. Like when you choose to do this for yourself, you're saying I'm important. And maybe that doesn't, maybe for someone who's like, I'm absolutely not going to do fitness, I'm not, that's not me. But it's like, okay, well, you're an artist, you're a musician, like you choose to invest your time into that. You're
Mm-hmm.
prioritizing yourself, which is saying, I'm important enough to do
Exactly.
this. And so that's like one of those unrecognized like powers of it, because you don't you're not thinking like making that connection necessarily, but it teaches yourself, teaches your mind like I'm important enough to spend time on. And if you're going
Yeah.
to invest in your healing, you're going to have to choose yourself, and you're going to have to learn how to put yourself as a priority so that
Mm-hmm.
you can heal, because it's not just, unfortunately, as much as we both wish we could just wave our magic wand and help people and it would happen, it does take an investment of time that nobody really would want. Like nobody wants to do that, but
Yeah.
if you want to get there, you have to.
So exactly. So, you know, just to recap on what you're saying here is that absolutely just gentle movement, kind movement, it shows kindness to our bodies for one, but it's literally physically good for our bodies and our brains, right? So we get the endorphins, we
Mm-hmm.
have the movement, we have the muscle growth, which improves our blood sugar, which improves our mood. Improves our bone density, which improves how our brain and our gut function. All of these things are important, right? The physical, the literal physical components. But in addition to that, there's the kind of metaphysical or the symbolic part of it, which is
Mm-hmm.
just showing yourself that you matter. And I'll actually add a little bit to this, that there's research that shows that when we add something into our daily life, and it doesn't have to be something big, but when we add a habit, so it can be like maybe I have issues with a mountain of laundry and I do one load of laundry a week. And I still have a mountain of laundry, but I do one load of laundry a week. That actually helps you in your betrayal healing journey because what you're teaching your brain is this brain is malleable. And this brain, like I'm teaching my brain that it can be taught. When my brain
Mm-hmm.
starts to learn it can be taught, I can also, it just adds more plasticity, more growth. Same with my nervous system. It goes, oh, it's safe to make changes and we don't stay as stuck, right? So if we're adding
Mm-hmm.
something like walking, which is one of my favorite ways to get my movement in, when we add walking in and we do it every single day and we get up early or we do it in the evening or whenever, that really having a new habit starts, there's these like symbolic changes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece of it, right? That is, it's research based and it's physiological, but you
Yeah.
also may not
Yeah.
notice it. And then there's this other,
Yeah.
there are these other components. For example, we talked about vision and mission that can impact
Mm-hmm.
your betrayal healing journey. So let's think about what are some other kind of parallels that you notice people who are working on a fitness journey, whatever that looks like for them. Again, for me, it's walking, a little weightlifting. It's pretty
Yeah.
general. I'm not an athlete. I don't come from a very
Mm-hmm.
athletic family. We're musicians and nerds. Like we're not very athletic.
Hey, hey. No.
But, that's important for all of our health. Whatever that journey of athleticism or
Mm-hmm.
fitness looks for a
Yeah.
person, what are some of those
Mm-hmm.
parallels that you've noticed with the clients that you coached athletically as a physical trainer
Mm-hmm.
and coach, and then, now that you're working in betrayal, that you see these parallels?
Yeah. Well, I would say we another research-based fact is like when you write down something, you're actually
Yeah,
more
that's
likely to get
huge.
there. So like writing down, I used to have all my athletes at the beginning. I coached high school pole vault. So I would have them write down like, what is your goal for this year?
Uh-huh.
And then they would have to tell it to me because there's also like there's something else about saying it out loud. So writing it down, telling someone else, and then working for it, you actually are more likely to accomplish it. So
Yeah.
that's something that I have people do at the beginning, and it can be very hard. Depending where you're at, it's going to look just like different. And I say, this is your vision, and it's going to change over time. But what is it that you want? Where are you trying to go? And they have to like write it down and think about it to
Mm-hmm.
even I mean, people come in and they don't know. They're like, I don't know what I want. And it's like, okay, well, let's start answering that question. Like, what is it that you're working towards? So you have an idea, because that's going to be your motivation on the hard day. Just like when an athlete is like, well, I want to jump this high, and it's like, okay, well, you have this
Mm-hmm.
terrible sprint workout that I just told you to go do, and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do it. Well, your motivation is that height you're trying to jump. Like if as a woman, if it's like, well, I had a 1-year-old kid, like a huge piece of my motivation for healing was like, I can't stay broken. I have 17 years to raise this child. And if I don't figure out how to not be crying every single day,
Yeah.
like this is going to be a really like I'm not going to be a great mom. So a lot of my motivation, especially in the beginning, was for my son. And so when you have those hard days, when you don't want to do the work, you have to know why you're doing the work. And without a vision or a goal, you don't have a lot of motivation, because you're just like, well, I don't, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Like
Right.
maybe it's not worth it. Like, and to have someone, when you've said it out loud, then you also have that person to remind you and encourage you, not
Mm-hmm.
to a good coach in any sport will not use that to tear you down, but to build you
Right.
up.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's brilliant. So I heard a lot of things there that are really good. One being, we're writing things down. We are we're having people that we're talking to that we can be accountable to, right? And
mhm.
after betrayal, after we've been betrayed, like you're clearly the victim of the circumstance. I think anyone who
Mhm.
tries to argue that you're not a victim of it, that's just a
Yeah,
wild accusation to
yeah,
say
yeah.
that people
Get a
who are,
red flag.
yeah, that's a huge red flag. If they're saying, oh, you're not a victim of that, or maybe you contributed to it in some way, like that is just wild, right? So you're clearly a victim of it. And so sometimes the idea of like self-accountability can be like really uncomfortable or even can feel victim blaming. What do you mean I
Yeah,
have to be accountable? And so I hope
yeah,
those listening, what they can hear is that when you have a coach, when you have a support person who's catching you and holding you and being with you, that's the first stage, right? Especially right afterwards. Like you described, like there's that grief period that you just have to be and grieve and feel your feelings. And then that part of that
mhm.
person's role as your coach or your therapist is to hold you accountable because you matter, not because, you did something wrong and so you're in trouble and so you need to be held accountable. Like your partner, the
No,
betrayer or
no.
your ex-partner,
Yes.
they need to be held accountable for what they've done wrong, right? That's a different
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
accountability. But like we just like in a fitness journey, there needs to be some accountability for us because we matter and our health matters, our physical health matters, our longevity. Like we want to be in our elder years and be able to like lift stuff and stand
Hmm.
up off the couch, you know? And so the reason we hold ourselves accountability in a fitness journey is because of who we want to become when we're
Hmm.
100, right? It's not a punishment. It's to say,
Yeah.
I want to go in this direction. And the same thing is true here, right? Where it's like having that person who, like you said, the right person isn't going to say, oh my gosh, you didn't even do your reading or you didn't journal.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Have that's just cheering you on and that you're checking in with them. And I like the idea too of there being a coach and therapist, but also a community. And also you have
Teammates.
local, yeah, teammates. I love it. Like potentially you have friends local, right?
Hmm.
Or family members that you can that are safe. But if not, there are these, online communities of betrayed women who just really get
Hmm.
you and
Hmm.
they can be those teammates. So tell us a tiny bit,
Yeah.
just a little interlude about your support group that you house and make
Hmm.
available to people because everybody needs teammates. And then we'll jump back into the conversation. But I want everyone to hear a little bit about your
Yeah.
your organization.
Yeah. So the Journey Beyond Betrayal community is online. There's women from all over the world. It's not 13,000 people like this Facebook group. It's a smaller, more intimate community of teammates, I call it a sisterhood of support because again, like we just talked about, teammates are important for supporting you, like empathizing too. You're working towards the same thing. And so to do it alongside of other people also has power with people who really can understand the depth of your pain, and are experiencing the same hurt, brokenness, like just to feel like you're normal. There's that question of like, is this normal what I'm going through? Is this like, am I crazy? And that's when you get inside of a group of other women who understand that and can really not like reaffirm that you aren't crazy and what you are experiencing is very normal. There's so
Hmm.
much power in that. And I've had people come in and just like, just reading the messages of people, like what other people's stories are, is like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much better just being with other people. Because as much as we would, I agree, like having community in person is, give someone who can literally give you a hug is great. And I think I encourage people to have that as well. But sometimes you don't have someone that you know that has actually been through it. And so or because people aren't talking about this. Nobody, as a fitness coach, it's like everybody knows when you're on your fitness journey. But when you're
Hmm.
on your betrayal recovery journey, probably not that many people know about it.
And when you're on a fitness journey, if you're making physical changes, people are commenting to you, "Oh, you look so
Mm-hmm.
great. You're doing so
Yes.
well." But if you cried all night and you dragged yourself off the floor and you journaled about
Mm-hmm.
it, no one's there to go, "Good job. You look great." You're
Yes.
just
Yeah.
like, "I just slept by the toilet." There's
Yeah.
no one there to really say that. And so having this type of
Yeah.
community is so powerful, right?
Yep. And that's exactly one of the things we do both we have on our Monday meetings, like a celebration. Like, what are you celebrating? And we have a place, if you're not in the meeting, you can type it out, like a celebration circle. And then also struggling. Where are you struggling? And the same thing. Like, so you can type it, you can say it out loud, because you need people to celebrate. I think, like, and again, this again, fitness and like these little tiny steps that you take all make a big difference. But it feels so much better when you have someone celebrating, when you have teammates that are encouraging you and saying like, way to go. Also, I think sometimes you don't recognize
Oh,
those little things
yeah.
that you're doing. And so when you have teammates and you have a support system, they can say like, "Oh, you did that. Like you did that like, let's celebrate that." Like it, because you don't even realize that it's happened, or that you did it until you say it out loud, maybe in a different kind of context. And someone can be like, "Good for you. Like you did that." And
Yeah, that's so
as much as
true.
we wish we didn't need that, I mean, I like that. Like I like when someone says good job, I'm like,
Yeah.
as a mom and a wife too, we don't get that. Like our kids often aren't like, oh mom, like thanks for that great dinner that you made me. It's like,
It's so
hey, I don't
true.
like this, you know.
Like constant
That's really
criticism.
helpful.
Yeah, no, I think that that kind of symbol or maybe unexpected power
Hmm.
of fitness, or those symbols that come from that, one of them is those teammates. And so,
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that component of it. We'll make sure we put the link down below where you guys can find access to it. I know we've had people asking, like, what are some groups that aren't 12 step that have a little bit more flexibility? This might be
Hmm.
a really great opportunity. I think it's
Yeah.
very fairly priced and a really great space. So definitely consider that. Kind of to get back to this fitness concept, I wanted to ask you a question. Many women feel disconnected from their bodies after betrayal, or they may feel unhappy with their bodies. You and I have talked
Hmm.
before about how fitness can feel complicated after betrayal
Hmm.
because your inner survivor, the part of you that's trying to stay alive, might tell you like, "Oh, you weren't pretty enough. You weren't sexy
Hmm.
enough. Your body didn't look the right way. These women that they look at, you don't look like them." And
Hmm.
and you can go one of two ways. You can have like a what part of your inner survivor that says, "So you need to stop eating, start exercising, and just really beat yourself down physically so
Hmm.
that you can be more safe because then you're not going to get betrayed again." And you might go into the
Hmm.
other state, which is like, well, he doesn't deserve me to look that way. So F him. I'm not taking care of this body. He's just going to get, as bad as
Yeah.
it's going to get, right?
Hmm.
I've seen this for many clients. I think for me, it just went to holy cow, I'm juggling my mental health. I'm juggling my household. I'm juggling kids. I'm juggling my
Hmm.
marriage. I'm juggling my jobs. I'm juggling all the different things. And so it was
Hmm.
just hard to maintain
Yeah.
fitness. And so
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that complicated relationship with the body, but how even just taking a step, or someone who's not athletic like me, integrate movement, navigate some of these complicated things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be the first to acknowledge too, like, especially in the beginning, I was by no means working out and like following the same fitness journey that I'm like that I do now in my daily
Yeah.
life or
Yeah.
had done in the past, you know. And as a mom of a 1-year-old, and then part of my story is I got pregnant as part of our in our recovery process. So like that looked different,
Yeah.
you know,
That
and how much
complicates
time
it.
do you have? But that comes back to what you said earlier about the laundry. um Another thing that I tell people is like you just have to take small steps. And so is it 5 minutes, like is it 15 minutes that you can spend, you know, what is that amount of time that's realistic, that is
Mm-hmm.
doable? And this is where I would do this with my clients too. They'd come in and it's like, you have this giant, you know, I want to lose X number of pounds. And it's like, so I'm going to start working out 5 times a day. And it's like, well, how many times are you working out now? And they're like, one or zero. And you're like, well, how are you going to now create, like, you're spending 30 minutes working out, like how are you going to go to 300? Like,
Yeah.
right,
That's,
it's
and
a
also
that's
like,
a
is that
mountain.
reasonable or healthy
Right.
for your body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, let's see what is reasonable, what's doable, because there's also, and I haven't read any of these studies any recently, but like when you set a goal and like it's so unattainable, like it, and you don't,
Yeah.
and then you're like, I'm going to do 300 minutes, and then you do 30, you end up feeling like you're failing. And so then you give up.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if your goal was 5 minutes a day and you do that, like you're going to feel better about yourself. So that's where it comes back to like, okay, what can you do that's realistic, and be very like, I always told people, like fitness and this, go on the low end. When people told me they were going to do 3 times a week, it's like, okay, let's say 1 to 2. One to
Mm-hmm.
two is what I'm going to hold you accountable for, or I'm going to encourage you to do. Because, and if you want to do 3, and you know, often when you, with the laundry, right, you're like, I'm going to do one load. What happens is over time, you start to do 2 and 3, and you're like, oh, well, I'm already doing it. Okay, so I'll just spend 10 minutes instead of 5. But
Mm-hmm.
it's actually getting yourself to start to do it. And
Yeah.
so being extremely realistic and full of compassion and full of grace for yourself,
Yes. Yes.
recognizing where you're at, and that just doing something new, adding this into your schedule is going to be an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah.
And again, when you were talking about the struggles, like absolutely those are two different ways to go. And so as a coach and or as a friend, like I would also try to help someone shift, like this is not for him, this isn't about him, and this
Yeah.
is for you, this is for you. So that's why you pick something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be like the most high caloric burning, or like what is it that is going to fill your cup up for your mental health and your physical health.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do? And let's start there. And it doesn't
Yep.
have to be this giant thing. But because there's also research that shows when there is something you feel is impossible or like hard to do, that actually doing something that you didn't believe you could do or that you thought was hard is one of the best ways to build confidence. There's a
Mm.
fabulous book called The Confidence Code. It has nothing to do with betrayal trauma recovery, but it just talks about the struggle with confidence generally that women experience.
Yeah.
And what they found was like when you do something that you thought you couldn't do or you thought would be hard for you to do, that's when you start to feel better about yourself. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't even matter what they found. Surprisingly, it doesn't matter if you fail, even. If
Mm-hmm.
you say, like, I want to do, let's take a fitness thing, like, I want to do 100 squats, and you start to do them and you do like 70, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't nearly as hard as I thought. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be able to do 100. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but just trying it, getting over that fear, like
Right.
tells yourself, one, like I'm important, I can do hard things, I
Mm-hmm.
can do things that, and it's that brain change like you're talking about, teaches your brain like, oh, what I thought isn't actually true.
Yeah.
And there's another woman I follow on Instagram, and she does this with girls, and it's super powerful. She goes around to schools and she asks them, like, how many push-ups do you think you could do? And then actually has them do it. And she's like, oftentimes, like, girls don't think they can do as much as they actually can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the amazing power of resilience that you'll learn when you really do invest in your healing, is like how strong you really are, because you think you can't do it. But when you start to do it, you will see just how strong you are. But it's not going to happen overnight necessarily. Just like
Mm-hmm.
fitness, like you don't go from like where you are to like losing the 5 or 10 or 30 pounds or whatever it is that you want. Like it
Yeah.
happens.
Do you mind if I tell a short story? It's one that we talked about a little
Yes.
bit when we did an Instagram live, and we're gonna have to wrap up soon, so I'm gonna try to go fast on the
Yes.
story. So for me, there was a point, it was after I'd had my twins, and I had triplets and then I had twins, and I was
Oh
like,
my
my
gosh.
my diastasis recti, my ab muscles were very separated. I
Yeah.
almost had no muscle tone. I had gained a lot of weight and lost a lot of weight, so I'd lost a lot of muscle too through that whole process. And it was about a year after. I was actually struggling with like postpartum anxiety and mental health more than I was paying attention to my physical health. I knew something needed to change. And I don't know why I decided in my mind, this really goes to that confidence that you're describing. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to do an Ironman. Okay. I just told myself that. Okay, but here's the deal, right? I was overweight. I didn't have very much muscle. I was never athletic in my life. You know, when it was time to run the mile in middle school, I was the last person on the track, and the teachers were like, "You're being lazy." That was my experience with running. I hated every second of it. But I do not remember why it got into my head that I'm like, this year I'm gonna do an Ironman. Was it? Then I was like researching it. I'm like, okay, one day I'll do an Ironman. This year I'm going to do a triathlon sprint, which is like a baby Ironman.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
don't know, an Ironman is like a run, a swim, and a bike. Not in that order, but that's what you do. And the triathlon, a giant triathlon. And then a sprint is like a
Mhm.
baby version of that. So it's like a 5K. And I can't exactly remember because I haven't done one in a while how much the swim and the bike is, but it's a
I
lot
think it's like a
shorter.
quarter or a half mile. I haven't
Half a
done it either, but
mile.
my
Yeah.
husband did it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I haven't done that. I've not,
Yeah. And
I,
so at the first of the year, my twins were maybe one. I think they were one. And I was like not improving on my mental health after having babies. I was not improving. And I was like, I don't know why I decided I was going to do this and just make it happen, which also waking up early, not my jam. Moving, exercise, not my thing. What I mean by that is like by nature or by like my family of origin is not athletic at all. I have no idea where I decided to do this. I had no friends doing it. I just decided one day. I just got a wild hair. I do that
yeah,
sometimes.
I don't know. I've never had that urge,
Oh, I didn't have an urge. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, I'm gonna do something. I think it's that like vision part that was like, I need to do
yeah,
something and I don't know what it is.
yeah.
And I was also afraid of doing it publicly, especially the swim. I like to swim, but like everybody swimming at the same
Mm-hmm.
time made me really nervous.
Yeah.
So
That,
I just
yes.
decided to do it by myself. And so I took a year, and like you described, I had the vision that by the end of 2016, I'm going to do a triathlon sprint. And so I got like a little spreadsheet and I put how much I had to do every day. And I will tell you, there were some days I woke up and I put on my shoes and I walked out the door and I was like, walked around the block and came back home, and went back to bed because I was just like, I don't want
Yeah.
to do this. I don't want to do this, right? I have 1-year-olds and I have three-year-olds. Like, this is a lot. But
Yeah.
eventually I did it. And at the end, it was like the 31st of December. I did a triathlon sprint, and a lot of people could train a lot faster than that, but it was very slow. And, it
Yeah.
was like I did the Couch to 5K program like 17 times
Yeah.
or however
Yeah.
many times to get there. But I did it. But what I'm pointing out to is that, I told myself this big lofty goal. Um, and I didn't do that. I didn't do an Ironman, but I did something and I was so proud of myself. And I did build so
Yes.
much confidence in my physical fitness that it actually has launched me into maintaining some fitness. Not that, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
running every single day, but I lift weights and I walk a couple of miles most days, and, maintaining just basic health and fitness in a way
Mm-hmm.
that I probably wouldn't have before. So if you're
Yeah.
listening, I'm not telling you you need to run a track. Really just starting something. And if it's just
Mm-hmm.
getting up and putting on your shoes and walking outside and deciding like, okay, I'm gonna just go for a walk today. Just a habit of that, building any type of habit. Maybe you think I'm going to do it 5 days a week and you end up doing 2 days a week. It's still going to build that confidence because you thought, well, I'll never do. I am not actually going to do this. I
Mm-hmm.
really did in the back
Yeah.
of my mind, but it really did build so much confidence. And then it was good for my mental health, which was vastly better at the end of a year. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really significantly better. It was not the only thing that healed my mental health with postpartum anxiety. I needed medication for a while, and I had a therapist, and I did other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one thing that did help me with
Yeah.
my, fit with my mental health journey as well because of the physical benefits. So all of those, it's like there are some things in life, it's called the Pareto principle. There's some things in life where you put in 20% effort and you get an 80% output. Where if you do one small thing, it has so much packed into it that you get this
Yes.
massive output. And you wouldn't think getting up and walking 15 minutes 3 days a week to start with would be that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, oh, that's going to be that powerful because we get on social
Yeah.
media or we see people who are losing tons of weight or we see these,
Mm-hmm.
we put on pedestals people who run a marathon or whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
But really, fitness can be fit into that Pareto principle where just that small effort has so
Yes.
many things that
Beyond the physical. Yeah.
beyond the
Yeah.
small thing you think you're doing, but it doesn't feel small at
Yeah.
the time. I totally
No,
understand. Like,
no.
just putting on your shoes is the worst part. I don't want
Yeah,
to do that.
absolutely. Well, and that what I heard in even in your story too was that you're like, okay, I wrote down my plan. Like you had like these little things. I'm sure along the way it was like accomplishments, little tiny
Yeah. Or
accomplishments to
weeks
celebrate
would go and
along
I
the,
would
yeah,
forget. And then I was like, wait, no,
yeah,
I'm doing this. And I'd
yeah,
start over, which
yes,
is just like your betrayal healing journey, right?
yeah.
You're going to go months and you're like, I'm fine. And then you're like, I am not fine. I have to get back on this.
And your timeline too, like someone else might have like what you, I mean, and I'm sure you did this, but it's like you don't your timeline was you're like, okay, it was a year and it was just, December 31st, like that's fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay if it
Yeah,
takes
like on
you
Google,
a
they were
long
like, you can
time,
train for a
and
5K in like 6 weeks. And it took me a whole
yeah,
year. But I was like,
yeah,
but I did
you
it.
you did it, right? And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there, and it doesn't matter if someone else can do it in 6 weeks and you have to take a whole year to get there. Like it, that doesn't matter as long as you're
Mm-mm.
continuing to work to get there, and
Right,
that's so
because you
true.
take away all the benefits, however
Right,
long it takes. And
it takes.
actually, sometimes the longevity that it took me and my physical fitness at the time and my abilities at the time really builds a lot of character and a lot of resilience if it's harder, like you described. Like if you do
Mm-hmm.
something really hard for you, even if it's not that hard for someone else, like you are reaping the character benefits and the resilience
Yeah,
benefits of doing something really hard.
when you do hard things you feel better when you've accomplished. I did that, and now you can point back like I did that, and you're so
Right.
proud of it.
Yeah.
Like I would be proud too because that swim also scares me, and
Yeah.
I have no desire My husband trained for one, and I'm like, nope, that's on
No,
you. Like,
thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
out of that. Like,
Hmm.
but it's
Exactly. So thank you so much for coming today. Because we're so early, I'm not sure if we're gonna have very many questions for us to answer. We have a couple people saying this is amazing, fitness after betrayal. I love this. So I know that what you're talking about today is so powerful, and I'm so
mhm,
grateful. Because we don't have any questions, actually, let's take 5 more minutes. I have one last question for you, but I just want to say
mhm.
to those listening here in the group, because our lovely Kate has experienced betrayal, unfortunately, she's allowed to be in the group, which is the qualification to be here. And so
Yeah.
if you do have questions later, this will be posted in the group for probably a month or two, and it'll be in the guides for a while as well. If you run into this later and you listen to it and you do have questions for her, feel free to ask them and tag her in them, and she can answer those at her convenience. But I just want
Please
to make
tag
sure
me, because
that
that makes there's a lot going on in this group. And
there is a
so if you
lot.
tag me,
Yeah,
yeah, or
for sure.
I don't know, can they you can PM me if that's if you feel
Yeah,
like I haven't answered your question, please do that. Because I'm not
absolutely.
avoiding you. I just probably didn't see it.
It's a big group and there's a lot of
Yeah.
notifications, so for sure. So my
Yes.
last question, and I
Yeah.
know we could probably spend another like we mentioned this the other night. We could talk all night about this stuff.
We were
But the
gonna talk
last
for 10 minutes. It was like 30 minutes later.
but the question I have for you is talk a little bit about champion mindset or having the inner champion and channeling that.
Mhm.
Just give us like a little bit about what you do around that because it's really fascinating to me.
Yeah. I mean, and this is what I talked about at the very beginning. Like, I realized I came into my bit like my D-Day with a lot of things that a lot of women don't come into it with,
Totally.
and that's okay. It's okay that you didn't have the same life that I had that brought me to my D-Day. Everybody comes into that different, but what helped me get through it and what were the things that I did and how they can benefit you is like, just we talked about like creating a vision for what you want and being willing to do the hard things to get there. List like having a coach, I think, is an important part, like to someone who sees things from a different perspective, from an outside perspective, who encourages and equips you to help you accomplish your goal, a partner in your journey. And then really starting to have confidence in yourself, like learning how to have believe that you can actually do it, believe in yourself. You might not come in, you're not necessarily going to come into your D-Day with those things, but how can you get those? How can you believe in yourself? How can you have a vision for your healing? And how can we start to take steps to actually get there, have a plan and an action plan, I guess. And it doesn't have to be like it's not going to be the same for everyone, but what is it that who are you and what do you need to get to where you want to go, and pursuing those things with a drive, and learning how to do the hard things, learning how to push through hard things so that you can build resilience. Like, that's the mindset of a champion, someone who like is willing, like overcoming barriers, doing the things you don't want to because of your purpose is bigger than your pain, doing things you didn't think you could, you didn't believe that you could do. um those are all the things that a mindset of a champion that you don't have to have when you start, but it can absolutely be. We know that your mind is malleable. We know that you can create, you can change your mindset, and so it's learning how to think like a champion. And you see like these Olympic level athletes, like they're not walking onto the stage like thinking, oh, maybe I'm gonna do this. It's like, no, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do it because it's so important to me, and this is why it's important to me, and this is what the work is worth. And it is hard work, just like an athletical is so hard. Like betrayal recovery is so hard, and it feels extra unfair because unlike an athletical, which is totally driven by like your choices, like, oh, I want this, nobody wants this, but you know
No.
you don't want to feel like this, and so
Yeah.
in order to get out of it, like you have to do some things that you probably don't believe you're capable of, but I absolutely believe you're capable of. I know, KayLee, you believe people are capable of when you make those
Absolutely.
choices, and so I want to help people develop the things that really helped me get through it. And everybody has different elements of that. Everyone brings, to the no, you're not, nobody's starting at like zero, whether you've been an athlete or not. It you all have some of that, and then it's just developing more and more of that to help you get through And ultimately, I think seeing yourself as a champion and having confidence in yourself at the end of it is
Yeah.
really when I start to like be like, oh, I love like this transformation that happens in people when you start to see them believe in themselves is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because not that that's the end of the like that makes all the pain go away, but then you're operating out of this place of like being able to make decisions and
Mhm.
navigate your life, not just the betrayal part of it, but the rest of your life too, with like
Yeah.
who God created you to be. And that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And when people think of those Olympic athletes, they want to do it because they want the gold medal. But what's the point? This is so hard and so heavy, and I can't control my partner anyway. Why should I
Mm-hmm.
heal? What is the vision for that? And I think you really nailed it on the head there. And maybe I'll add a tiny bit to it, which is just like, if you can navigate this, going from feeling broken and I can't trust myself and I can't trust anyone, and every man or woman on the street feels like a threat to me, which is just what happens after betrayal, right? Or I hate my body, or I hate all men or all women, or whatever the scenario is. If we can get over the course of this work that she's talking about to that champion level, you're resilient, which means if you can get through this, like, you can get through anything. I mean,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
emotionally and mental fitness, emotional and mental fitness, that level of resilience, you're going to be able to navigate heartache and grief that's going to come at you, because this is just a
Yeah.
fallen world, a difficult place to live. Bad things
Yeah.
happen to good people every day. And if you have emotional and mental, the type of emotional and mental fitness and resilience that comes from navigating this thing, you
Mm-hmm.
actually will trust yourself deeply to be able to
Mm-hmm.
grieve and work through whatever comes at you. And there is a deep level of wisdom and peace that is on the other side of that, that
Mm-hmm.
I really want for you. So there's absolutely a gold
Yeah.
medal out there. There's definitely a
Yeah.
why. Thank you so,
Yeah.
so much, Kate, for
Mm-hmm.
joining us here today and for sharing your story and your expertise. About athleticism and fitness, but also just coaching and the importance of coaching and the importance of
Mm-hmm.
this level of work, and why we do this
Yeah.
work. I really appreciate that. Where
Yeah.
I know we'll put some links down below, but just
Mm-hmm.
give us a couple of places people can find you or how they can reach out to you.
So Journey Beyond Betrayal is is the name of the group and what we do, navigating infidelity together. So journeybeyondbetrayal.com is my website. I have some free resources there. And then also on all like, well, not all social platforms, I guess Instagram and Facebook, you can find me at Journey Beyond Betrayal. And so those are the easiest places to find me. And I would love to connect with you if this is your journey. Nobody should have to do this alone. And I think when you don't think that necessarily you can get there, that's when you really need a community and people around you that are going to point you to hope. Like people like our stories, you can see we've overcome this, and here we are. And even if you don't believe it, sometimes just being around other people that believe it for you
Yeah,
is the first step. Is the first step.
totally.
So
I totally agree. All
thank
right.
you so much for having me. I've loved this conversation. I love like thank you for the opportunity to talk about all the different things that have partly made me who I am and are important to my life, and some of them painful, but some of them like, especially as a now 42-year-old, I'm like, heck yeah, I was an NCAA champion. Like,
Yeah,
so
and heck yeah, I've journeyed beyond betrayal and
yeah,
I'm
heck
living
that,
this
yeah,
big,
yeah,
beautiful life, right? I mean,
right,
we
yeah,
all, and we talk about the reality that mental fitness, emotional fitness, um, learning how to grieve, going through hard things, like none of that really ends. We're always growing. I think it's
right,
probably true for physical fitness too, right?
yes,
You're
yeah.
always having
It's a
to work
journey.
on that. It's ongoing. But there's also a difference between that desperation, like just trying to survive, keeping your
Hmm.
head above water, and just, the gentle
Yeah,
paddle upstream of, life is good, and
yeah.
experiencing the peace of that. So, all right,
That's
my
another
friend.
parallel, I guess. You wish the journey was over, but it's never over.
It never is. I know. You're like, I'm ripped now. Dang it. Still have to work out.
Dang it, still journeying. But yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
the
you so much.
conversation.
And then again, for those of you listening in, feel free to pop questions below here in the Facebook group. And then also I'll add your links as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. See ya.
Bye.